Take a look at this wide landscape of the Mongolian steppe. In the 12th century, this was a massive, desolate region where scattered nomadic tribes fought constantly over scarce resources. Into this brutal environment, a boy named Temujin was born. Before he was 10 years old, a rival tribe assassinated his father. Immediately afterward, his own people abandoned him, his mother, and his siblings to the harsh winter, leaving them to die. Survival meant stripping away everything except the biological necessity of staying alive. Temujin and his family foraged for roots, chewed on animal carcasses, and ate raw food just to generate enough calories to avoid freezing in the snow. Isolated in the freezing wilderness, he realized a cold truth about his environment. No allies were riding to the rescue. No higher authority existed to enforce justice. This traditional painted portrait depicts the man that starving boy would eventually become. On the frozen steppe, he internalized a very specific philosophy. Only those capable of enforcing their will through absolute strength would survive. The trauma of absolute vulnerability created a permanent psychological vacuum. To ensure he would never be victimized again, Temujin required total control over his surroundings. As he grew into a formidable warrior, he began applying his individual survival tactics to regional politics. He slowly started consolidating the fractured, warring tribes through strategic alliances and localized conflicts. He offered a strict binary choice to neighboring clans. If a tribe surrendered, they were integrated into his ranks and given equal share of spoils. If they resisted or betrayed him, every aristocrat and fighting man was executed. The threat of total annihilation rapidly accelerated the centralization of power, snapping independent tribal nodes together into a massive force. By 1206, the factions had dissolved into a unified Mongolian state, and Temujin took a new title, Genghis Khan. He immediately scaled his survival tactics into a military doctrine. Every soldier was mounted, carrying minimal supplies, and living entirely off the land, creating a cavalry force that moved with terrifying velocity. Neighboring agricultural civilizations had built their defenses around static stone walls and heavily armored, slow-moving infantry. The Mongol forces simply bypassed these lumbering armies, striking deep into enemy territory before an alarm could even be sounded. The resulting Mongol military functioned as a highly calibrated engine, scaling one man's childhood instinct for dominance into an industrial operation. With the tribes unified, the borders of the steppe could no longer contain them. The Mongol army spilled outward, initiating a multi-directed assault on the surrounding empires. Looking at this stone gatehouse, you can see the scale of defensive infrastructure the Mongols encountered as they pushed south into China. Because horses cannot jump 50-foot walls, the Mongols rapidly absorbed Chinese engineering, conscripting captive experts to build complex siege engines and breach the fortifications. This ancient Persian manuscript depicts Mongol warriors laying siege to a fortified city. Pushing west into the Khwarezmian Empire, they adapted their logistics to survive vast arid deserts, drawing out heavily armored Persian forces and exhausting them under the sun. Pushing north into Russia, they leveraged their origins on the frozen steppe. While European armies typically paused campaigns during the winter, the Mongols used frozen rivers as ice highways to execute coordinated, high-speed strikes against Russian principalities. But their highest-yielding tactic required very little physical combat at all. They weaponized human psychology to maximize their geographic expansion. As this graphic illustrates, entirely wiping a resistant city off the map was a calculated communication strategy. By slaughtering the population and burning the infrastructure, they broadcast a regional warning. Neighboring cities, seeing the smoke, would immediately surrender, saving the Mongols the cost of a protracted siege. The efficiency of this system yielded immense territorial gains. In 25 years, the Mongols conquered more land than the Roman Empire managed in 4 centuries. Genghis Khan's expanding blast radius flattened entire royal dynasties and erased ancient borders. A localized quest for security on the Mongolian plains had scaled into the subjugation of the known world. In 1227, Genghis Khan died. Almost immediately, the outward momentum of the Mongol war machine stalled as his heirs fought to secure control of the throne. The entire political structure relied entirely on the gravity of one central ruler. As we see in this diagram, without him, the empire rapidly fractured along internal fault lines, splitting into 4 distinct competing territories. His descendants turned their lethal military doctrines inward. Decades of brutal civil war gradually exhausted their resources and destroyed the very infrastructure they had built across Asia. Take a look at these arid mounds scattered across the landscape. This is all that remains of the empire's central hubs. Once the centralized authority faded, the cities reverted to dust. Yet this map reveals a permanent scar left on the globe. By subjugating everything from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe under one initial legal code, the Mongols created a secure, transcontinental trade network. For the first time, merchants, technologies, and ideas could travel safely from Beijing to Baghdad. The interconnected geopolitical and economic systems of the modern world were inadvertently forced into existence by an abandoned boy, starving in the snow, who decided he would never be vulnerable again.